Hey guys, it's Drew here. It's 1 o'clock in the morning and I am feeling like I'm ready to make a video today. So today I thought I would talk about my experiences with the Sacred Rebel deck and what I feel like its experience has been with me and why I picked it up in the first place. This is part and parcel a response to Margaret over at the Truth and Story and Co, who sort of asked the question of who does she sort of feel it's like aimed at, and also as a requested video for me to talk about by Melissa. So I'm kind of covering that. And I knew at some point I would want to talk about this deck because it is one of those fundamental decks in my life that I'll never get rid of. And as I've shared before, my beautiful copy that has been with me for many years got ruined, but I have a new copy. So I just got to wear this in, really. I do have a couple of the cards back there, so I won't bother about picking them up, but I'm going to go through the cards anyway as I talk. Okay, so, and I have notes. In response to the question of who I feel like it's aimed at, I'm going to come at this as, a consumer who picked up the deck, and I'll show you some images as we go through, who picked up this deck after learning that it was a creative deck, that it was an intuitive deck, and one that really inspired shadow work. And around the time that I actually purchased my deck was when I was finding out what shadow work was, really going back into Carl Jung, stepping into my goddess path. And so this deck did come at the right time. And I really like the idea of being a rebel. And so I really feel like people who would probably be drawn to this deck are going to be people who do like to do shadow work, who do like to create, who want to get in touch with their feminine aspect, their really deeply rooted feminine aspect, because I feel like this is a largely feminine deck. However, that does not mean that males cannot use it. I also wanted to just mention, and I don't know if I can find the links, but maybe Larissa can offer them at some point. Storytelling Taryn T. I know that she has used these as intention setters for her creative work. And I wanted to sort of discuss a little bit about what creativity means, because when I've come to this deck, I came to it with, I am a very non-traditional person in every structural way that I can possibly think of. And for me, coming to this deck in the terms of creativity, I wanted to come to it as a writer, as a novelist. But as I've progressed through my experience of this deck, it's become about learning what I want to offer in the world. That doesn't necessarily have to be about work. It doesn't necessarily have to be about tarot. It doesn't necessarily have to be about anything relating to the actual, like the being of these cards, because the cards are just tools. So no matter what lifestyle you have, I really do believe that these can offer you something, because they are addressing creativity as an innate ability that humans have within us. We have the capabilities of being storytellers. We have the capabilities of creating anything. We birth from our bodies. We birth from our souls. We birth through our mouths, and we speak and we write and we paint and we draw. And even when we don't, we cook, we tell stories, we give meaning to objects, we give meaning to the things around us, the beauty around us, plants, animals, lives. That's creation. And I feel like this deck is definitely one for everybody, every living being, because that sacred part of who we are, no matter what we do in life, no matter who we are, no matter whether we're a homeless person living on the side of the street in a cardboard box, we are still creative beings. And I think that for me personally, when I got this deck, that was one of the biggest sort of experiences or feelings that I got from this deck. The energy that this was for everybody and that everybody could really enjoy it, because creativity is part of every human being alive. And interestingly enough, I do believe that creativity is part of the animal life as well and part of plant life. So I do feel like this deck has that as well. Um, it sort of binds all those things together, or rather merges those things together. And it kind of reminds me that, you know, what I think is mundane, especially living such a um, living in such a life that is revolved around spirituality, tarot, paganism, tree magic, crystals, rocks, deity worshipping, spells, all that kind of stuff. Like I live that, I breathe that. That's who I am, and storytelling and writing. But I often forget that the mundane world, the physical world, the world that we all live in, the world that we're all a part of, has its own creative magic, and we are all part of that. And um, I feel like these cards definitely bring you into that, bring that into yourself as a person, just as a person having this beautiful experience and honoring that you are the rebel that came to Earth. And it took me a long time to work that out with these cards, that they weren't just looking for a way for me to create stories. They were looking for a way for me to create the life and sustain the person that I actually am and want to be. And also bring up the parts that really need to be let go of. So for me, my experience with this deck has been so far collectively around deconstructing my personal beliefs and honoring that part of myself that rebelled. As I've mentioned, rebelled is a word that I really honor. I never used to be like that though. I realized very, very early on in my life that I was going to be a creative person for the rest of my life. And by creative person, I mean create my perspective of creativity, or the form it comes in, is writing, painting, drawing, cooking, nurturing, making things out of found objects. The list goes on. And so I avoided that. I really did. I really avoided that. I rejected it. And it was a very common form of self destruct for me, because I knew I didn't want to sort of fit within the confines of how the world was sort of panning out, because I could see that there needed to be changes. There were changes happening. There was changes happening within me, especially when I got this deck. Um, just looking at these cards seemed to trigger some really deep curiosity about everything in life and what I was telling myself, um, because that's just it just does that. It offers that, and I think that's one of the most sacred things about this deck. But I used this deck primarily when I was working with it for the first couple of months of using it, coming into my path, to really build a solid foundation that I could rebuild my life back upon. Because for me, I never thought I'd make it past 18. It's incredibly sad, but I never thought I'd make it past 18 with the life that I was living. And so I use that to honor that part of myself that I was always going to rebel against tradition, who didn't feel like I ever fit in with the structure of education, the structure of relationships, the structure of life in general. And so coming to this again reminded me of that inner child within myself that did long to speak with that part, that asked me to be curious, that asked me to look beyond our world, this world, and really tap into divinity, and through oracle and tarot as well. But just in general, it just asked me to really look towards rather what my dreams were, um, because I'd spent a lot of my childhood dreaming about being an author, dreaming about sharing my pictures, dreaming about creating characters and personas that people could enjoy and heal from. I grew up in a family that was very violent and disruptive and filled with tension. So part of my rebellious nature is that I will rebel against that, but I will also honor that part of myself that got me through that and continues throughout my life to get me through survival instincts, as well as pleasurable, successful visionary dreams that I've built and manifested. And so this deck has definitely helped me with that. What it's also helped me with, and I think this is some way that people can come at it no matter what your spectrum of ideas around how you perceive yourself or how others perceive yourself, is stepping outside DNA and generational karma. I've noticed that when I've done readings with this for people and myself, it does lend itself to being very much about giving and receiving to yourself the life that we incarnated to experience. And a lot of that is around deconstructing past generations' expectations of what things should be like. And I'm talking about how our relationships should be, how our sexuality should be, um, how we should work, how we should feed our families, how we should feed ourselves, where we should live. If we look back at history, as women especially, we've come from a very suppressed, some people are very happy back then, but very male orientated society, and you can't hide from that. But there's nothing wrong with males and really tapping into that energy either. And if there is one thing that I would say, is that I know this is a feminine deck, but I do wish that it had some more masculine energy to it, just to balance it out a little bit. Because we hold so much of that in ourselves in this life. I think we fight to be sacred rebels, we fight to be sacred women, we fight to do that because it's so important and integral to our spirituality and our movement as women. But I also think we forget that a lot of men in our lives and in our generations too were held to the same expectations, and not everybody wants to follow that through. So I feel like when I'm giving readings to men, that's very prevalent as well, that we're breaking down that idea of um, what our legacy is, we get married, we have children, we buy a house, we have kids, woman stays at home, man goes to work. I know that all that stuff has broken down, but there are still some of it trapped in our bodies and trapped in our belief systems. And I think that the Sacred Rebel has offered me that chance to really strip myself of that, because I knew within myself, especially working with this deck, that I can't lie to myself, guys. I really can't. Like, I knew that if I continued on the pathway that the generations that I had before me, even though they had given me life and I honored them, I wouldn't be here today. I would not be here today. It is because I rebelled against myself that I am here today. So, and I said it in both ways, because I rebelled against the tradition, but I also rebelled against my own, building my own traditions and starting my own belief system, and really figuring out what I truly believed within myself. And so I really feel like this has helped me step beyond the thresholds of what is even possible. The stories that I used to tell myself, guys, are stories. And this has offered me that really beautiful doorway to creating self stories that nourish me, that break through the shadow and ask me to look deeper, to write deeper, to contact sacred soul and energies, to go searching for that energy, to go searching for the path of manifestation. Oh, sorry, I'm a little bit burpy today. I had some chicken for dinner. Chicken always does it. And so in saying that too, I really feel like the Sacred Rebel deck offers a chance, and I always say offer because I feel like it's an offering, like it is an offering for me to really connect with my divine feminine ancestry. And I've just gone through all the cards. And because we are witches, we are practitioners. Maybe we're not. Maybe we're not. Maybe we don't read tarot for other people. Maybe we don't practice Wicca. Maybe we don't practice that. But even so, we are spiritual beings if we're using the tarot. We are spiritual beings without the tarot and oracle as well. And I think that's really important to honor, because in my experience using the cards, like I said, tapping into that ancestry, tapping into that energy of the past, I have found that there are a lot of women in my history that have suppressed things, have suppressed this desire to speak, suppressed this desire to create, suppressed it to touch nature, to use nature, to harness and not like the resource, not like to deconstruct the resource and tear the earth down, but to be in one with it. And by nature I mean themselves as well. And so it's helped me to keep a lot of what worked with my family and what works with myself and what works with the society that I'm walking in right now, and just really start to deconstruct and let go of the stuff that doesn't, because it is shadow. It is not helping me right now. And even, the stuff that I hide, like, it is a fantastic deck for how I hide my creativity, how I hide who I am, and how I want to create my life. Because whether, I stay at home and create things, go out, create things, work or don't work, I'm creating. Like, I am just creating every day. And this just, it reminds me of that. It brings me back to that place of um, giving my ancestors, I guess, a piece of me, as well as them giving themselves a piece of me through their divine feminine journey. It also really helps me appreciate my personality and core personality, as I've spoken about before. And really, I think it speaks of cycles. There's a lot of cyclical energy in this deck that you can really appreciate, no matter what your stance or spirituality beliefs are, no matter what path you walk or don't walk. It has beautiful elemental energy that can really take you on a journey, and you can walk this in a sort of medicine light way. You have used this on my medicine wheel. I did use these on my medicine wheel, and that's why they got candle wax all over them. But they're very nourishing to walk around that circle, to take through a cycle of your life, and to see what comes up, to see what you create or don't create. I hope that was a good video for you guys. That's just my opinion, and that's how my experience has been with this deck so far. I've used it for spreads. I'm using it for my year ahead spread right now, which is basically, like, for me personally, I'm just using it as a energy prompt rather than using it to journal about. I'll read the book and I keep the energy with me on my altars. And that's what works for me right now. Sometimes I'll pick out a card and just meditate on it. But sometimes I'll just pull out little segments of the book and do some journaling and free writing on it and see what it means for me. And that for me is enough to work with this deck, because it does have really very powerful energy to really tap into yourself and your subconscious, and also in a sort of free form way that, at least for me, allows me to maybe look at parts of myself that I don't often look at with other tarot decks or oracle decks. Yeah, very beautiful deck. So hopefully that helps you guys in navigating the Sacred Rebels. And thank you both for contributing to sort of the collective conversation about this deck, because I do think it's a deck that would really benefit a lot of people. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.